the dedication that you talked about, it's strange that I should be here because it was actually my suggestion that it
Thank you very much.
The Greenwood building.
I do appreciate it.
Because of that story, and because, and I know it's a bit of a trite expression, but I do see you as a real local hero. And I want to ask you about your Footscray connection.
I was born here. My grandfather was born here. My grandmother was born here. Most of us were born here. We all went to that school. I'm the eldest child. My sister Janet, my sister Amanda, my brother, we all went to that school. Then we all went to Maribyrnong High School, which has now become a sports school. I would have fitted in there all right. And we've always belonged here. My grandfather, Alfred W. Greenwood, was a real estate agent. His name is still on I think it's still on the thing. That was him. Yeah, but that was one side of the family, and the other side was my mother, Jeannie. Her father came from the Isle of Mull, who was Mackenzie, Alexander Mackenzie, and my grandmother was Welsh. So that covers everyone, really. Yeah, I like it here. And I've travelled around, lived in lots of places, but I really like Footscray. It's always been so interesting. I got sent by a paper to stay in Camberwell for a week, and then I died of boredom.
Everyone happy here?
Sorry. There were I'd say that if you all came from Camberwell either. There was no other voices. I like walking into a market and listening out and hearing. I can pick up Greek. I can usually identify most things. The only time I ever got stuck with a language was when I was in the Footscray in the market, and there were two traders talking to each other. I thought, I don't know that language. It sounds a bit like Arabic, but it's not Arabic, and it's not any of the Arabic, it's not Indian. What is it? Then finally I went up and asked them, it was Hebrew. That's why I didn't recognise it. After that I recognised Hebrew, yeah. I like it here. This has always been an astoundingly comfortable mix of different people from different places. We could not have a pogrom here. We couldn't have a race riot, because you'd have to convince pick a target. You'd have to convince far too many people who were, as it might be, I don't know, Lebanese Christians, that there was something viciously wrong with Russians, when actually they all know that it's viciously wrong with Lebanese Muslims, if you see what I mean. When I was at school, the Greeks, Turks and Macedonians weren't allowed to sit next to each other. Now they're marrying each other because they're actually a lot closer together. Footscray has a leavening effect on racial hatreds. All these kids during the late unpleasantness in the fall of Yugoslavia were saying that they were going to go off to fight for one side or another. But what they had were a lot of school kids saying, my dad's a bit funny about this, So he wasn't going to tell his friend that his best friend Slavko was actually belonged to the other tribe. We have a leavening effect. We have football instead. I was born in the year that the last time Footscray won the premiership.
Oh, that is the icing on the Footscray
My father said it was a good year for both reasons. Yeah.
Your father was a Footscray supporter?
Avidly. As a memorial to him, we bought him a seat in the gent stand just where he used to like to sit, a good view of the goals. Yeah. I'm looking forward to having games there again. I personally can't stand football. I have been spending my entire life gluing together the sad remains of those who came back saying, umpires. But it is an incredibly important local thing, so therefore I support it.
Well, it's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
If we can talk about being a writer, the actual becoming a writer. I have a bit of a shtick I do in my non-fiction classes, which is about what you do is you get your free Vistaprint card that says that you're a writer, and then you are, and that the drive then to be a writer and to compete and be competitive has to come from within. The label is easy to obtain, but it's the interior work that comes. And I wonder about when you thought of yourself as a writer.
I wouldn't put writer on my passport application until I had 5 books published. But I was a storyteller from the time I was a very small child. Do you want to hear about that? That was fun. Do we have elder sisters?
We do.
Elder sisters? Yes, only children. All right, all of us. Okay. Elder sisters have a funny position, an uncomfortable position in any family, because whatever they do, they're going to be wrong. They're required to stop their rotten siblings from doing evil things like feeding snails to the baby. Well, I figured it was protein. I just talked it out of his mouth, or whatever. But also, they are not going to pay. Your siblings are not going to pay attention to you like they do to your parent. So I was the eldest of 4 children. My father was a shift worker. My mother worked very hard to try and keep us all together and keep us all clothed and fed and everything. So we all had chores. And one of them was my sister Amanda, for instance, had to do the washing up. She did it every year from the time she had to stand on a chair to reach the sink. Once she was away from home and had her own money, she bought a dishwasher, and she has never washed a dish in her life since. But my job was to get everybody out of their clothes, into the bath, not allowing anyone to drown anyone else, however much it struck them as a good idea, dried, into their jammies, into bed, and mop up the bathroom, which I did every night of my life until I was 19. So consequently, I had to tell the story that put everybody to bed. It was a ritual. A story must be told. And because my audience had a broad range in age, it was very difficult for me to tell a story that to read a story that everybody wanted. If the story amused my sister Janet, who's only 2 years younger than me, it would not amuse my little brother, who was also louder and stroppier and the only boy. So after the hop on pop incident, when the book got thrown out the window, and I was ritually cursing the innocent name of Dr. Seuss, I thought, all right, I'll tell a story. What's the simplest form of story? It's a fairy tale. How does a fairy tale start?
Once upon a time.
And how does it finish? And in between, you can say anything you like. So if you're telling stories to children, I recommend this, especially if there are power failures or something. Storytelling is very good for gluing your family together. You pick the stroppiest of the siblings, the one who's going to give you the most trouble, or the one who really wants to go away and play war games, and you say, you're the hero, and you're going to pick a fairy tale thing. Rescue the captive princess from the tower, fight the dragon, all that stuff. Of course, in my case, most of my audience was female, so I had a princess in stainless steel armour mounting her white mare in order to go and rescue the captive prince from the tower. And when we were fighting the dragon, I didn't want to actually go around killing dragons, so we learned how to speak dragon with the intervention of a friendly witch and a talking salmon, and we went into an agreement with the dragon to have a castle heating business. Worked beautifully. And anyway, so I told these stories every night. I told long stories because it's much harder, as anyone who writes fiction will know, to start again with a new group of people every night. And I wanted to go and do other things. I wasn't really wrapped in it. I was just doing it because I had to. And otherwise there'd be rebellion. And my mother would tell me that I had to keep talking and I wanted to go back and read my book. So I put into those fairy tales everything I'd been reading. Chunks of Greek mythology. One of my favourite characters, the flying horse, Pegasus. Because I learnt Greek from Themi, I also learnt Greek legends and Greek, and the fact that there's a lot of Greek in English. When I went to high school and met Italian kids, there's an awful lot of Latin in English too. So, but when I was 6, I was picking up zoor, which is animal, is zoology in English, zoological gardens, for instance, and all those. I was getting an amazing kick out of languages. I used to dive through dictionaries. It was a wonderful feeling. It still is. I love words. So I told stories, and I didn't know that they actually liked them until at a Christmas party recently. They lined up all their children and sat them all down, and these are internet children, and said, Auntie Kerry's going to tell you the story about the dragon. Auntie Kerry thought, oh dear, I don't remember the story, but never mind, we'll come up with one.